Westmeath against Limerick. I don't think anyone's expecting an absolute cracker here. I'd imagine Limerick will be much changed. So far, their form this year has seen them win 2 out of 3 games. And to be honest, when they had their frontliners out against your Cork team, they definitely did look the stronger of the two teams. And, as they ran the bench, is it fair to say that that's when Cork started to come back into the game? So to me, Limerick are in very rude health. Obviously, Kyle Hayes is suspended, but maybe they would have rested him for this anyway. But do you see any sense that Limerick aren't the same team again this year?
No, I don't think so. And I think this time last year we were all trying to maybe decipher, maybe there were signs of slippage, maybe there were signs of them kind of maybe just coming back to the pack a little bit. I think you could argue that maybe did happen last year with the scale of the wins that they had. I think they were really, really truly tested for last year's All-Ireland win, which maybe didn't happen to the same extent through no fault of their own, and maybe it was a sign of their dominance in some of the other seasons. But I think the squad has just been embellished a little bit, 4 or 5 different options now. I know guys have been on the fringes the last couple of years, but looking at, Fergal O'Connor, Adam English, Colin Coughlin, Cathal O'Neill's been out injured. As Kylie said, that was kind of tough on him. Literally pick up a calf injury and you miss out on a Fitzgibbon Cup win. With UL, Donegal Dálaigh is a guy who's with the under-20s, had a good campaign with Monaleen, and I wouldn't have maybe thought that maybe that was going to be something that was going to kind of get him into the shop window. But I do know Paul Kinnock's club, Monaleen, and he was, Ombazan was obviously the coach, and was hugely successful with them this year. I think they did have Kinnock in on a few occasions. He had a lot of success with the club in football, and obviously why wouldn't you utilise someone like that to try and give you a hand when you're in that kind of a club campaign? So I think that probably didn't hurt his chances, in terms of he's obviously a direct line to Kylie then, in terms of kind of getting this guy in, and he seems to be kind of coming on nearly every game and kind of getting a point or two.
Doing well.
Kieran Barry is another one. So it'll be interesting to see, are we going to see Dermot Burns back soon? These press invites that we get, I know did you see yesterday, but he's up for interview, I think the week after next is the launch of the Féile. So obviously back in the country, back in the kind of the Limerick hurling setup now, and probably this might be a game that they're kind of looking to kind of bring him back into it. But yeah, overall, I think it's kind of very, very positive for them. So the Aaron Gillane, his availability is probably the one thing that is the probably question mark about it. And just the knock-on effect for that for the team will be 2 issues. I think the goal scoring threat will be one goal from 3 games so far. That was a brilliant goal created by Adam English's run against Clare at the end of the game, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they had a shot, did they, against Galway? I can't recall. Maybe a clear-cut kind of chance. So, Gillane does kind of offer that. And then I just wonder about kind of the free taking, Dave Reedy's taking some, Mike Coolin's taking one. You'll obviously have Burns back now in terms of the kind of ones from kind of the midfield half back line, but just wonder about that. But maybe it's a bit like when Dublin were at their top in the football. Are you kind of looking for flaws that maybe aren't actually readily apparent,
Yeah, I think you are, because they just seem like a machine that doesn't really have any sort of a weak link. Westmeath, they've lost all 3 games to date, but I mean, they have a minus 42 scoring difference, but a lot of that came against Clare, and they were relatively competitive against both Wexford and Cork. I just saw it was an interesting column this week from Martin Breheny, and it just starts out like the following, and he's obviously talking about Westmeath against Limerick, and he goes, "Hi there, Limerick hurlers. Hope you're finding balmy Portugal to your liking this week. Probably not as hot as Florida and the Bahamas, where you enjoyed a lavish holiday in January, but a whole lot warmer than here right now. You're on a training week, getting away from the home routine and working like full-time professionals as part of the foundation work for the All-Ireland 4-in-a-row attempt. You'll be back for the weekend, all refreshed and ready to play Westmeath and Mullingar on Sunday. They will have shivered their way through training this week, and having lost their first 3 games by an average of 14 points, it would have been higher had Cork fielded their strongest team in the last round. They know they're heading for a relegation playoff." It kind of does sum up the difference between the haves and the have-nots.
It does, yeah. I guess this has always kind of been there, and maybe I think it was more of an issue we were focusing on football. I think the last couple of years, I think this happens when one side is truly dominant, and I know about you, but I think it is interesting how it's completely flipped now, that it does seem it's very, very hard to see anyone make a case that Limerick aren't favourites and won't win the Liam McCarthy at the moment this year as we're assessing it, whereas you try to make a corresponding case in football. 2 of us could throw teams at each other now, and I'd say we could both pick holes in the other's argument. It just seems far, far more open. Like you mentioned, the point, I suppose, kind of being a machine. The resources argument kind of is, I suppose, being kind of put into it, but they have obviously kind of organised themselves very, very well. And there is obviously a lot of merit to these camps. Like, you see any team that's won the All-Ireland, you looked at Liam Sheedy's Lakewood Gale was on last week. He was talking about kind of it was his brother talking about the bond that existed in the team. I don't see that line, John Sheedy, and he said, he took me to loads of places. He even took me to Mexico. He was basically going on about kind of what that kind of 2019 team, and I think Tip have used Portugal as well, for these kind of training camps. And like Kylie made the point last week, basically going on about just the amount of, similar to what Michael was talking about earlier, just the contact hours. It's not even the volume of sessions that they actually do. You probably might want to do it every week, and kind of, as he kind of said about the comparison with the Sydney Swans team in a professional environment, you don't want to be kind of stuck in each other's pockets 24/7. But I think for that week, it is very, very useful. I suppose if you have the capacity to do it and the wherewithal, you're obviously going to try and exploit it. And if the kind of schedule allows,